Hi, I'm Brandon Finnigan, Director of Elections here at DDHQ. Aside from the Texas primaries way back on March the 1st, no state has held theirs yet. But that's about to change, as multiple states are holding their primaries in a crazy run of 8 of the next 9 weeks, starting on May 3rd, wrapping up on June 28th. During that time, we'll take a look at how each state, get their elections to work, what's different after the redistricting process, the key races, and what to watch for on election night. Now, before we get started, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Click that bell to receive notifications when we post new videos. Now let's get on to the elections. First up, Indiana. Primary May 3rd, a date of 2 states. Indiana's one, Ohio right next to it to its east, coming up right on after the same night. The polls close there at 7:30. Let's focus on Indiana, right, the Hoosier state. Indiana's polls close at 6 p.m. local time. 12 counties, though, in the northwest and in the southwest are in the central time zone. So most statewide contests really can't be declared officially until 7 o'clock Eastern time, even if they're pretty much uncontested. Indiana changed very, very little in redistricting. Didn't lose or add any seats. It has a total of 9 right now. It's thought of as a red state, and while the Senate race this year isn't considered competitive, so to speak, and neither are either party's primaries for that matter, it has always been a lock-solidly Republican place, at least on that level. While it's voted Republican in pretty much every major presidential election in the last 80 years but 1 or 2, there have been several Democratic U.S. senators, most notably the Boz, Father Birch and son Evan, and most recently Joe Donnelly, who lost his re-election in 2018. The political geography of Indiana is pretty simple. So right smack in the middle of the state, you got Indianapolis here / Marion County. One of the same, all right? It's kind of like the situation you have with other parts of the country. They're just all one unit. It's reliably Democratic. Lake County in the northwest, that's home to Gary, all right, kind of on the outskirts of the Chicago metro area, has been Democratic, but it's been kind of trending a little bit more towards the Republican Party. The edge has been kind of shrinking a little bit the last 2 cycles. St. Joseph in the north is lightly Democratic, and then you have the college counties of Monroe and Tippecanoe rounding out the bluish areas. Everything else in the state is red, red, red. Various shades of red, dark red, kind of lightish red, deep, deep, deep red, but red. The Indianapolis suburban counties of Boone and Hamilton have moved slightly leftward in the last decade, but we're still talking like 20-point blowouts for a Republican candidate there, unless the Republican's doing poorly statewide. On the congressional level, no district's considered super competitive in the general election, but Indiana's 1st district, now that right there, that one might be interesting. It's shifted a little bit rightward in the last few years. There's an outward shot of a surprise there. With a relatively tame general, the primary is kind of a little bit of a focus of attention on, though, right now. Once we move out of Indiana 1, there's one primary I would really watch this year, and that would be in the 9th district. Now, the Republican incumbent there, Trey Hollingsworth, has been there for a little while. He's not running for re-election. So, as a result, there's a whole host of people. Everyone's coming out of the woodwork to run for this race. Mike Sorrell, who repped the district like 15 years ago, like around the time I was able to start voting. Jim Baker, Stu Barnes Israel, Bill Thomas, Brian Tibbs. And there's one big one, though, State Senator Aaron Hoshin. Hoshin has the endorsements of A.G. Todd Rokita, Reps. Walorski and Bushin, and might be considered the favorite, but she's not invincible here. She ran an unsuccessful effort to primary Hollingsworth about 6 years ago. Okay, now we got Indiana out of the way. No offense to you if you live in Indiana, but we know there's not really a lot of competitive races there right now, right? We're talking primary season, so you got to look to your neighbors to the east. Sorry, you got to look at the Buckeye State there, Ohio. Polls close there 7:30 p.m., and that is going to be the really big focus of action for the night on May the 3rd. It's always considered the state of focus during presidential elections, right? But Ohio's moved decidedly rightward. We can all look at that here. It bucked the 2018 Democratic wave. It's voted nearly identical margins for president for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. We're talking 0.07% difference between the two, despite the fact that the national vote did shift considerably leftward. Its suburbs have kind of faded in Republican favor, but in trade, the Republicans have picked up blue-collar counties by the bucketful. And that's really solidified their position overall in the state. I mean, of course, you have, how they've been doing with rural voters, particularly in Southeast, the Appalachian area. That whole chunk has become even more Republican as we've moved over the last 2 decades. Okay, so you got Ohio, right? You got the old lumpy state here. And basically, your blue areas are, screamingly obvious every single cycle. You got Columbus, so you got Franklin County right smack in the middle again. Kind of like it, you get 2 states in a row that have the capital cities dead center. Be kind of cool if that was in every case, but we get some 2 in the Midwest like that. So you got Franklin right here, Franklin, Columbus, the city of Columbus. Then you got Cuyahoga up here up on the lake. That's, of course, the home to Cleveland. You got Lucas, home to Toledo. And you get Summit, and then you get a couple of sporadic counties like Athens, the college town, full of the college town, and then everything else is just red. Red, just like Indiana. It's become a lot like Indiana in that respect. They did lose a seat due to the census, population drop and everything, so now they're down to 15 seats. And so the Republican legislature decided to make Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan's district way more Republican. 13th district basically got merged with the neighboring Republican one. Now it's like marginally red. So Mr. Ryan has decided that he's going to run for Senate, and he's running virtually uncontested there. He will win his senatorial primary, hands down. Meanwhile, the 13th district's now wide open here, and a bunch of Republicans are running in that one. So that's going to be a pretty interesting primary to watch on election night. I would also say watch the primary. Mary Captor, she used to be in what we used to joke as the Snake on the Lake district that kind of roll around on Erie County, right on the top part of the state. She's the most vulnerable Democrat incumbent in this state this year. I would even say she's, in this environment, she might be more invulnerable than Steve Chabot. He's a Republican in the Cincinnati area, District 1. That district voted narrowly for Joe Biden. In an environment that shifts left, Chabot's going to be in some trouble. But in this current environment, it's Captor that's the one that everyone's going to be watching, I think, in the general election. In the 9th district, Captor's seat, you've got Beth Dack, Teresa Garavone, J.R. Majewski, and then Craig Rydell, all competing in that primary. I'd say the reworked 13th district Republican primary, that's going to be interesting too. But really, we got to go up bigger to really look at some crazy action coming to the primary stage. The Republican gubernatorial primary looks like a coast for the incumbent Mike DeWine. Do expect former Congressman Renacci to get into the double digits, maybe into the mid to high teens there. But with the anti-DeWine vote split, DeWine's going to win most of the state. Kind of watch the Northeast in Ohio. I would expect Renacci to do his best in that area. Renacci represented that area actually all the way up to 2018 when he decided to run for U.S. Senate. Speaking of the U.S. Senate, come on, this is the big thing. This is the big show here. Everyone's waiting for the main presentation, right? And that's going to be U.S. Senate Republican primary. Rob Portman, he's out of the picture. Slew of Republicans stepped up. You got Josh Mandel, the former treasurer. He was also a 2-time candidate for the Senate. And one time he actually won the nomination back in 2012, lost the party nomination in 2018. He kind of led polling for a good part of the year. You also had investment banker Mike Gibbons, and he saw his numbers kind of climb in polling through March and April as he is self-funding, basically guaranteed him constantly being on the airways. And of course, the man who was vying with Mr. Mandel and Mr. Gibbons for being the Trump voter's choice, and he is the one who earned former President Trump's endorsement, is author J.D. Vance. And, he was kind of polling a little bit low, but, we'll see what happens with Trump's endorsement. He's going to obviously slug it out with both Gibbons and Mandel. There's also your typical traditional party candidate, Jane Timken, who received the endorsement of the outgoing U.S. Senator Rob Portman, and I would say she kind of rounds things out for the top 4. You also have State Senator Matt Dolan, you've got businessman Neil Patel, and IT exec Mark Pakuda rounding out the list. I would say that the winner of this contest, if you really want to look at an area that's going to tell you who wins. Now, obviously, you got your traditional suburban Republican voters around Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. So even though these are blue counties, you're going to want to watch them on election night to get sense of who's really kind of pulling it up through with these major media markets. So watch those counties. Watch Cuyahoga, watch Franklin, watch Hamilton County. But I would say you really want to look at the ATM in the Northeast. I'm talking about Ashtabula, Trumbull, and Mahoning counties. ATM. These counties have moved further and further and further right, dramatically so under former President Trump. And I think that the influx of new, or well, honestly, converted voters to the Republican Party, they're probably going to tip the balance, just my feelings, in the Republican primary. So really watch that area and see what shakes out. I hope that this little preview I'm doing here, May the 3rd primaries in Indiana and Ohio, I hope that you enjoyed this preview yourself. If you do, please give us a like. And please, of course, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click that bell so you'll be the first to know when we post our May 10th preview. And that's going to feature the primaries in Nebraska and West Virginia. The latter features our first true member-on-member primary of the year. Until then, I'm Brandon Finnigan with Decision Desk HQ. Thank you all for watching.